Hello, I'm Philip. I'm your trainer today. I'll be training on function in Python. So, as we have been looking in our previous tutorials on Python, we have discussed on various loops, we have discussed on arrays, data types, syntaxes, and the introduction part. Then today I just need us we look at what a function now in Python. Now, you just need to create a new file here, and you can just name it function. You can just name it function.py. Okay, right. You can have that one. Then let's have that one. Then okay, we can have what are function now. We'll say that function are just block of codes. It refers to the block of codes that are organized and reused to perform either a single or related task. And they only run when they are called. They run when they are called. That refers to block of codes. So this is just a block of codes. Block of codes. Alright, then we'll just discussing. So for the first thing, we'll discuss on how you can create a function. We'll discuss also on how you can call a function in Python. Then we'll also discuss various ways on how you can we'll discuss something else we call argument and parameters. We'll also discuss how you can call a string or a list in Python. We'll also discuss on how you can set a default value or default parameter. We'll also discuss a pass statement as used in Python to remove errors. Right, now this part, let's begin. Now we'll just look at how to create a function. Right, in Python we have other inbuilt functions such as map. You can have map, then you can just have something else like you can have reduce, you can have filter. So those are inbuilt function. There are so many inbuilt functions that you use. Then now in this part we'll look at how you can define or you can just define your own function in Python. So we use this and div or DEIF keyword to define a function. We use this one to define a function now, right? So for instance, we may have an example here on how you can create or you can define a function. So you can have this one, then you can just say right. So this is how you define a function. So you can have something else like so this is how you define your function now. So you use this one. So this is a function name. So this is the name of a function now. Then you use this keyword before your function name. Right. So we'll be looking at how you can call a function. We'll look at how you can call a function. How to call a function. So let's discuss on how you can call a function. We'll discuss how to call a function. Alright, now we'll have the same example as we have illustrated before. You can have this one. So this is my function. Then you can have okay, you can so then so this is hello world. Okay, you can just call your function by just writing my function. then you just indicate that one, then you just let's run our program. Right, so this is the way you call a function. So this is the way you call a function. This is the way you call a function. So we'll be looking at something else we'll be looking at something you call arguments. We'll be looking at arguments. Then we'll also discuss at what we call parameters. I'll explain each. So parameters, okay, let's start with arguments. Arguments are refers to the value that is sent when a function is called, right? So this is a function that is sent when a function is called, right? Then if parameters is just refers to the variable that listed between the parentheses when you are defining a function, right? So they are just similar. So we'll be looking at each, or we just have an example here to illustrate the same. Generally, we say that arguments and the parameters are used in function are the information that is passed into a function. So these one are just information that is passed through a function. Alright. So let's say we have my function. Okay, we can have my function. Then this is just an example. Then you have a country. Then you say this is what? This is Kenya. This is Kenya. Alright. So this is what now we call this one argument we have said is a value. So this is a value. So this is the argument, and this is a parameter. So this one and they are all passed through when you are calling a function, right? That. Okay, we may have an example. You can include many arguments inside a function as you wish. Okay, so they are just separated by comma. Or let's say you have my function. Okay, then you can have the name, you can have the age, you can have the gender. So those are just arguments. You just pass them through a function, and they are just separated by a comma, right? They're just separated by a comma. So we may have an example here to illustrate the same. Let's say you have my function. We have my function over there. Then you can have, let's say, school. All right. So this is okay. Sorry for that. So this is where you have print. You can have school. Right. So we can have my function, whereby we call a function now. We can call a function. We can call a function. Then we can just indicate where we have school. We can have Maseno. Then you can just copy paste the same. You can copy paste the same. Then you can just okay. Here you can just indicate Ingerton University. We will call it Ingerton University. Alright. So whereby we are just these one are just parameters. These are just parameters. We just call them. So after you run them, this one should replace where we have our school. Now it should replace this one because we have a function in our school. Then you just called it. Then for the first time, it will just print Maseno University, Ingerton University. Let's run our program and see the outcome. right? All right, after running your program, now you see now Maseno University, you have Ingerton University. Now that's your outcome. You can include or you can call as many functions as you wish. You can just include other schools. So that's all. All right, you can have. So in our next part, we'll look at how many arguments should I write. Do you ask yourself how many arguments should I write? So in this case above, we have just used a school. Then we have just indicated the school, only school here. So what am I saying? How many arguments should I write? The number of arguments called or defined in the function should be the same number. If you have just called or you have just defined two, or they are passed, or we say that you pass your arguments, the number of arguments passed should be the same as the number of arguments called. Let's say, so this is just one argument, so you have just called one argument, right? So you can't just say, or you just call two arguments here, or you just call one argument here, then you call three argument or just two. It will bring an error because you've not indicated it. All right, so let's say I have an example here for better understanding. We can have a function, then you can just say my function. Then we have just said that the number of the arguments passed so should be the same. Okay, right? So you can have name, age, then you can have country, right? So these are three arguments. These are three arguments, all right? So these are three arguments. So if we are just calling them, or let's say print, you can just say name, you can just say name, then you can just say so this one. So we uses these two double quotes. These are double quotes. We use them to indicate the space. So we use them to indicate the space. All right. So you can have that one. Then you can just say you can have. So this is henge. So this is henge. Then you can have something else we call country. So this is country. Right. Or just let's say we use two arguments. We can just use two arguments over there. Right, so this is just name and the hinge. So we can have my function, so we can call our function now. We can call our function my function now. Then we can call our function. Then you can say our first name is, our name is Philo, and you just say hinge is 23. Right, so we can run our function, we can run our program and see the outcome. You see now it produces Philo 23. So this is now your this is now your outcome, right? Now we have seen how many, or we have indicated, or we have explained on how the number of arguments that should run, right? So it should be equal to the number of arguments that are passed in your function should be the same to the number that is called, right? So we can have, how do I set a default? You ask yourself, how can I set a default parameter value? How can I set a default parameter value? When you have passing your argument, you can include a default parameter. Therefore, if it happens you call a function that you do not include the argument, then the default parameter value is printed out. Look at this example here and see what I'm talking about. So you can have that one. Then you say my function. So you can have my function over there. Then you just say name equals to philo. Alright, so this is a default parameter value. That's how you say a default parameter value. So this is philo, this is just the default parameter value. Alright, so you can define whereby you can just say, let's say my print, just say print my name is, you can have that one. Sorry for this, you can just so you can just say name. So this is now your argument that we've called, right? So you can call your function now. You can call your function now. Then you can just say indicate. This is what first name is John. We can have John. Can have John. So this is what this is Francis. You can have Francis. And you can have Jacob. Right. You can have John, Francis, and Jacob. So let's have another function whereby you do not include the name. You do not include the name. You can have another one, no sol, whereby you do not include the name. Do not include the name. Right. So let's run our program and see. Let's run our program and see the outcome. So if we run, now in this case, remember you have not indicated the name. So it should print out the default parameter value, right? So let's run something here. We just need to set this one and look at indentation. So this one should be at the first point. So over there, let's run now and see. Alright, see now it prints out John, Francis, Jacob, and then for this one it just print out Philo. So that's how you set. You can show now. Let's see the other one is just Philo. It's just the same Philo. So the other one is just Philo. So that's the default. That's how you set your default. That's how you set a default parameter value, right? So So you see now, so that's how you pass a string in a as a argument. Now you can have something else, or now you can pass a list, or you can pass a list. As we were discussing in our previous tutorial, is how you can write list. You can write list in a, or you can just use, you can write list in Python. Now you can have persons. So this is just a list. This is just a list. So you can have either Philip. So this is first name. So you can have something else like John. You can have something else like Simon. So those are just names. So this is a list. So this is a list. Now for you to call a function or to call a list, just need to include, so just my function, then you just say my function, then you can have persons, right? So this is just an example. So this is just an example on how you can write or you can call a list as an argument. So for you to indicate, you'll just need to indicate all this. So after you, for you to call a function, now you just need to call this, and now you just call it. Can I have that one? So right, so you can just call your function, then just to say my function. So that's all. Right, now we have seen how you can just, or how you can just pass a list or a string as an argument in Python. Now we in our other part we'll discuss on how you can write, or you can write return values, or you can write return values. So how to write return values. So we just discuss now return values. So we use a return statement for the function to return a value, especially when you're doing arithmetic calculations. It may come a point where you just need to do arithmetic calculation, either addition, multiplication, or you can just use division, you can do modulus and all those. So you just need to use return, or it just, this is return values. Right, now we'll just need to define our function. Can just define our function, then say let's say x, right? So we can just say return 78 plus x, 78 plus x, 78 plus x. So then we will need to now to print, we'll print what, right? My function, okay, my function. Now in this part we'll just indicate any default value. You can just have 9, so it will add 7 plus 9, then we can just copy paste the same. Now we can have either 10, you can have either 100, all those. So this is just our values. So you can run the program now and see. So in this part we have just say in print now you use your function plus that value you just need to add to. So we can just run our program and see the output. Right, you see the output now. So you have 178, 88, and this one probably this one is 87. All right. So that's how you write return values in Python function. Right. So the other part we'll discuss the keywords, or we'll discuss. So sometimes you may find or you don't know the number. Sometimes you might not know the number or the number of argument that should be passed. So we use this as star. So sometimes you don't know the number of arguments that are passed. So we use this star to indicate. Probably when you are doing, we use this star to show the same, right? So we can have an example here to illustrate the same function. Can have function over there that you can just have, then you can use cars, sorry for this is just all right. Then you can just say print the most expensive car is can have cars. Then you can just indicate value like, let's say 3, right? So in that part you don't know the number, you don't know the number of arguments that are called. Now you can have my function, you can call a function now, and you say my function you can have out, we can have Toyota, we can have Mercedes, we can have BMW, we can have something else like Ford. Now by just looking at that list, number 3 is what? Number 3 is BMW, right? So because it starts from 0, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? There are 4 arguments, or they're just 5 arguments, right? So you can just run a program and see the output. So it should print out the most expensive car is BMW. Alright, it brings out the most expensive car is BMW. Okay, so that's how you indicate. Well, probably when you don't know, you use this star here to indicate when you just don't know the number of arguments that are called. So the other part we'll be looking at is something else we call pass statement. So pass statement is just when, for your information, that your function cannot be left empty when defining it. You can just say defined define my function, right? So it is wrong. Why? Function, or what you need to know, that function cannot be left empty or expected. So it should have a value over here. You can have either henge, you can have either name, you can just, so to find all these errors, after you have used or you have left your function blank, we use something else we call pass. You see now the error has gone. So pass is just used to remove errors where, and otherwise if you just use it that way, it will bring an error side that runtime errors. So we have come to an end of our training. If you just need to view full of our course, you can just visit learntechphilo.com. So visit learntechphilo.com and view all our courses. We have covered several courses. Remember, just go there and find them. Alright, otherwise you can share with your friends, you can subscribe, and meet in our next tutorial. Thank you.